Hello and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Pet McDonald, and in this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 4 player game Gold West by Tasty Minstrel Games. Word has it that many a precious metal lie near the riverbed. So, let's grab our pickaxes and head on down to Boomtown. Though many will try, only one prospector will have what it takes to run the greatest mining empire of all time. The others will be left in the dirt. So, join me at the table and let's learn how to play. We'll start by setting up the main board. First, connect the 4 outer edge pieces together to form a frame. Then, place the water tile in the center area of the board. These are the terrain tiles. Shuffle and place them in a way that surrounds the water completely. Finally, place the remaining 2 tiles into the empty sides. In a 2-player game, like we're setting up here, these last 2 tiles that are not touching the water are flipped upside down and are not used. These are the mining tokens. Flip all of them so the side with the pick and shovel is facing up, and then mix them together. Now place the mining tokens onto the matching colored spaces on the terrain tiles. Copper onto copper, gold onto gold, silver onto silver, and forest onto forest. Once all of these have been placed, any that are left over are returned to the box. Now flip over the 12 mining tokens surrounding the water in the center of the board. These represent the available resources at the beginning of the game. Speaking of the resources, place them next to the board where everybody can reach them. We have stone, wood, copper, silver, and gold. Please note, the game does not come with these cups. Now let's set up Boomtown. Shuffle the office tokens, select 4 at random, and then return the rest to the box. Arrange the chosen tokens in any fashion that allows all of them to fit into the space provided. For example, you could also arrange them like this. In the final open space, place the double-sided 4 victory point token. I like to refer to it as the well. These are the investment cards. Shuffle them and select 8 at random to use in this game. Place them face up next to the board and return the rest of the cards to the box. Next, place these investment bonus tiles onto the board. The 1, 2, and 3 value tile are always used, but the 4 value tile is only used in a 3 or 4 player game, and the 5 value tile is only used in a 4 player game. We're setting up for a 2-player game, so we'll remove both of these. There are 12 shipping bonus tiles in 3 colors: copper, silver, and gold. Place 2 of each color and value in the bonus spaces on the shipping track, with the higher value being on top. So for silver, the 8 would be on top, and for gold, the 9. Now, each player takes a board and selects a color, collecting the corresponding pieces, which will include a minor score token. Place it on the 0 space of the score track. Each player also has 3 stagecoach tokens, which are placed at the start of the shipping track. Each player will have 12 camp pieces and 12 influence tokens, which are placed at the bottom of their board. In a 4-player game, each player removes 2 camps and uses only 10. But we're setting up for a 2-player game, so we'll put those back in. Now determine a first player randomly, perhaps whomever is wearing the largest boots, and give that player the first player order token. Then distribute the rest of the tokens in clockwise order. We're playing a 2-player game, so we can return these to the box. This section to the side is the supply track. Place the indicated resources onto the supply track, as shown here. And that's the setup. In Gold West, your objective is to claim the most victory points by managing your resources better than your rivals. The resources are divided into 2 categories: metals and building materials. Metals include copper, silver, and gold, and the building materials consist of wood and stone. Each of the mining tokens on the board will have either 2 or 3 resources on it, and are guaranteed to have at least one of the matching resource of its color. For example, you can expect to find silver when looking at the silver mining tokens, but you may find some other types of resources as well, such as the copper hidden in amongst this gold. The forest tokens will provide either wood or stone, and in some cases, both. They may also contain metals, such as the gold in this forest. Each type of resource is useful in its own way, as we'll see later. But for now, let's dive in and I'll walk you through what happens in a turn. The first step is to activate your supply track. We'll see later how more resources get added to the track, but I'll add more now for this example. Select one of the 4 bins in the track and pick up all the resources it contains. You may not select an empty bin. Now begin to move forward through the bins and place exactly 1 resource of your choice into each bin as you pass. Once you pass the final bin, the remaining resources in your hand are placed above your player board. This is called your usage area. These are the resources you will have available this turn. It's possible to end up with nothing in your usage area after activating your supply track. This simply means you won't have any resources available to use this turn. The second step is to use your metals. Here, you turn in the copper, silver, and gold from your usage area to claim victory points. You can do this in 3 different ways. The first way is by making an investment. These are public goals that all players have access to. You can only claim 1 investment card each turn. You do this by returning the metals shown on a card from your usage area back to the bank. You then place the investment card next to your player board and score the victory points shown here. So the white miner token will move 11 spaces up the track. If any of the investment bonus tiles remain, take the highest one available, place it next to your player board, and score those points as well. Some investment cards will have a special ability. If so, resolve it immediately. If one of the abilities is unclear, each one is explained in detail in the back of the rulebook. The second way to use your metals is by spreading influence in the Boomtown offices. These offices provide benefits at the end of the game based on certain conditions. Once per turn, you may place one of your influence tokens onto an empty office space in Boomtown by returning the resources shown above and to the right of it. For example, in this case, I would need to return 2 copper. Or for this space, you'd need to return 1 silver and 1 gold. You cannot choose a space which is already occupied by a player's influence token, but there are 2 spaces in each office, allowing 2 players to both claim the same benefit. 1 player can claim both spaces in the same office. By doing so, they will gain the same benefit twice. If you select the 4 victory point space, score those points immediately. The third and simplest method for clearing out your metal is shipping. Unlike the other options, you may ship any number of metals during the same turn. Simply return any metals you wish from your usage area to the bank and move each stagecoach forward a number of spaces on the shipping track equal to the amount of each metal that you have returned. When you pass the shipping bonus tile spaces, do not stop on them. Instead, move to the next space and take the tile which is on top, scoring the victory points immediately for that tile. There are also spots which show a 2 and a 3 victory point symbol. Whenever your stagecoach moves past one of these spaces, indicated by a bold line, score those points immediately as well. The last step is to build or loot. Unlike the previous step, which was optional, this one is mandatory. You must build exactly 1 camp or settlement, or loot a mining token. If you have either a wood or a stone resource in your usage area, you may spend it and place a camp onto the board. Choose a revealed mining token anywhere on the board and replace it with one of your camp pieces. You do not have to place this camp next to one you already own, though having camps together will affect your score positively at the end of the game. On your player board, you will find an influence track for each of the 4 terrain types. Place the mining token you just removed from the board face down into the first available spot on the matching influence track. Immediately flip over any unrevealed mining tokens adjacent to the one you just claimed, as these tokens will now be available for players to build on. Finally, take all of the resources listed on the mining token you just claimed and place them into one of the bins in your supply track. All of the resources from a mining token must go into the same bin. They can even be placed into one that already has resources in it. Notice the point values listed next to the bins. The further back into your supply track you place resources, the more points it'll be worth. So if you place them all here, for example, you would get 2 points immediately. You may place the resources gained directly into the top bin if you wish, but will gain no points for doing so. If you're building a camp and have both wood and stone available in your usage area, you may instead choose to build a settlement. When placing the camp piece onto the board, place an influence token underneath it to show that it is a settlement. Settlements provide you with greater influence. Instead of placing your collected token on the first available space for that terrain, skip a space and place it into the next space available instead. This provides extra influence for scoring at the end of the game and may grant you bonuses from certain Boomtown tiles as well. Other than that, it is treated the same way as a regular camp. If you enter the build phase and have no wood or stone available in your usage area, you must instead loot. When looting, place your camp into the wanted area here, instead of onto the board. You also immediately lose 1 victory point with the possibility of losing more at the end of the game. But all is not lost. You still select a revealed mining token, gain its resources into one of your supply bins, and take an amount of points depending on your choice. Even though we're not building a camp, you will still flip over any unrevealed tokens that are adjacent. The mining token that would normally go into your influence track is instead returned to the game box. You don't gain influence when looting. Also note that players may never choose to build a camp in an empty space on the board. Once you have finished building or looting, your turn ends and the next player begins their turn by activating their supply track. Gameplay in Gold West continues until each player has played all of their camp pieces. Once the final camp has been placed onto the board, players will then each take one final turn. During this turn, players will activate their supply track and use their medals. But no building or looting actions are taken, and no resources are claimed from the board on this final turn. Once the last player has completed their final turn, the game ends and scoring begins. There are 4 things that affect scoring at the end of the game. First, as shown on the board, players gain 2 victory points for each building in their largest group of buildings. This includes camps and settlements. Your buildings must be directly adjacent to each other to count towards this bonus. For example, neither of these 2 buildings would count as part of this group. Any points granted from the Boomtown offices are gained now, with the exception of the 4 victory point office, as that one was taken immediately when claimed. As an example, the white player has an influence token on the sheriff's office. So, they would gain 1 victory point for each of their buildings that are adjacent to an opponent's building. In this case, gaining a total of 6 victory points. Whichever player has the most camp pieces in the wanted area is considered the most wanted player, and loses 1 victory point for each of their camp pieces here. The player who is second most wanted loses 1 victory point for every 2 of their camp pieces, rounded down. So, in this example, the white player would lose 2 points, and blue would lose none. If there is a tie for most wanted, all tied players receive the most wanted penalty, and the second most wanted penalty is ignored. If there is instead a tie for second most wanted, all tied players receive the second most wanted penalty. Lastly, players receive bonuses for having the highest influence in each of the terrain influence tracks. The bonus points are shown here on the board. The higher number being for the player with the most influence in that particular track, and the lower number for the player with the second most influence. Ties for influence are first broken by the player with more settlements in that particular terrain, shown by the skip spaces. So in this example, for the forest terrain, blue would take first place as they have a settlement and white does not. If 2 players are still tied for first in an influence track, the points for first and second are added together and then split amongst the tied players. If there is instead a tie for second highest, simply split the second place bonus between those players, rounded down. In a 2-player game, neither player scores the first place bonus. Instead, the player with the most influence is awarded the second place bonus. The other player receives no points. After you've added up all of these victory points, the player with the highest score is the winner. If there's a tie, the tied player with the fewest camp pieces in the wanted area is the winner. If there is still a tie, the tied player with the most resources remaining in their supply track is the winner. If players are still tied, you better just set everything back up and play again. And that's how to play Gold West. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. But until next time, thanks for watching.